Do you have Facebook open to know when it pops up?
I usually just get notified on my phone.
Guess we'll see how that works.
Do you have the ID?
I believe it's the same, but I'm
Yeah.
not sure.
Yeah, we're live.
Okay. Do you want me to show you though?
No.
Okay. I just use the same one we always had. Not too shabby there. Okay. Welcome to One Live with Coach Blu and two on one with Athletic Director Marissa.
Yeah.
How's it going over there?
I'm good. Am I on?
Yeah.
All right.
Absolutely. I mean, you're registering, so okay. I think we're good. Welcome, viewers, listeners, subscribers to the channel and podcast. Thanks for being here today. It's good to have everyone here. Man, we've got a lot happening. Not just I guess here on one-on-one, but on the team in general. I think that we've got some awesome stuff for you guys planned in the future as we celebrate 10 years of active service in our communities. Team Addict Athlete turned 10 over the weekend. And we were able to celebrate that through the Provo Half Marathon, right? Mm-hmm. And a little gathering, a little barbecue, a little bit of normalcy now that the pandemic has lightened its grip to a certain degree. And it was awesome having some people there. And man, I got emotional fast.
It was fun talking to people.
Yeah.
Seeing everybody in person.
It was so good. And it was awesome to have a starting line of a race and an event that had people there, and got to meet and run with a few people that are Radio Ronin listeners, which was kind of a fun thing. Right. Unexpected bonus. And then, being able to celebrate 10 years at the park there, we've kind of adopted as our little home base park.
For the party.
Man, Holly Davies, did you see all the goodness she brought?
Goodness, she made us the most delicious cupcakes.
It was awesome.
It was blackberry and some chocolate ones and a beautiful cake, which I didn't get to have. That you guys.
The kids kind of went to town on that thing. It was funny, like Kevin's like, "Oh my gosh, it's so rich," and I'm like, "Dude, you're a 10-year-old. How do you know what that even means, right?" Yeah. And it was so rich that they ate it all.
Yeah, so that rich.
Yeah, they all have the yum yum gene. I've noticed. You ever heard of the yum yum gene?
Oh, our kids have it.
I think you got to be careful with the yum yum gene and addiction. So for those of you guys that don't know, the yum yum gene is that everything in life has to taste good, smell good, look good, feel good. Yeah. And our son Boston has the yum yum gene in full effect. 100%. You walk into his room and it's like you're in a techno disco club with all these neon lights and flashy things. And although he doesn't listen to that music yet, that's what's funny.
Yeah.
But it's all about good vibes.
It feels, the way it looks. He has to have the memory foam on his bed, everything soft and squishy and.
Yep. And I noticed that a lot of that too. It's kind of funny. Like I'm noticing this in social media and whatnot, where everything's geared to just feel good, like lights and like furnishings and all kinds of stuff. And I'm like, maybe our yum yum gene's getting way out of control here. Maybe we're getting too much. You know what I'm saying?
I think some people are
addicted to it. It's getting a little excessive. Not saying that we should be, so to speak, wiping with sandpaper, but all in the same breath, like when things get such good vibes and like just chill and relax, I think that we get super complacent, right?
Yeah.
Especially it's got to taste good. That thing is hilarious. Like, I don't know if you've ever noticed, Marissa, but like if you've ever tried to eat like a diet food or something that's nutritious, it kind of tastes like garbage.
A lot of them do.
So if you taste something that tastes really good, like it's like, oh my gosh, this is so good.
Yeah.
It's probably not good for you.
That's usually how it goes.
That sucks, I think.
Well, because we've tricked ourselves into thinking everything needs to be
absolutely
sweet or whatever.
We're going to jump into that maybe on a future session, but
it's fine, but it's not showing me on Facebook, but it is on Zoom. I don't know what.
Well, let's take a look here and see what we got going on the Facebook.
We finally figured out to get me on camera, and now I'm.
Oh, you know why? So it's probably from my point here. So let's go like this. Okay. Let's go gallery, because I'm doing a lot of speaking and you're not speaking a lot. So.
Oh, that's probably what you're doing.
The gallery view. I don't know. Did that change anything?
Hold on. It always takes a minute for Facebook to catch up.
Yeah.
Yep. That was it.
That's my fault. I shouldn't be the star of this show. Anywho, let's get into our Patreons. I want to thank our Patreon subscribers. Marissa and I are going to be recording a new Patreon for you guys today. It's going to dive deep on something that we'll touch base on here on one-on-one, but it's something that we've noticed, and I think that you're going to want to be very aware of, not just in relationships, but just society as a norm. And so the bonus episode we're going to focus on today is talking about some of the spectrum issues. These are people that are on the spectrum, family members, friends, co-workers, how to identify and how to help you be able to interact and have relationships with people on the spectrum. I'm noticing that there is
So this isn't
a
just
lot.
the autism spectrum. This is processing disorders, which a lot is the autism spectrum, but it can be somebody with ADHD. It can be somebody who is using substances. It can be somebody who is detoxing, where they're trying to process something and it's just not, it kind of gets stuck a little bit. So it's just teaching you guys some skills and ways that will help.
And you'll notice as we get talking about it just briefly today, but more in depth on the Patreon episode, how important it is for you to know this, because as these folks who have been kind of, I guess, misread, start getting into positions of higher education, of leadership, of, just like everyday life, you're going to want to know, like, why is that guy kind of acting a little weird? Like, what's up with that? And once you realize that it's not them acting weird, it's just the way that you can interact with them better. Oh man, it's going to make life so much easier. And you'll start seeing things too, because we've had a lot of relationships that we've worked with in the past that have had a spouse that are on the spectrum, and they don't realize it until they're talking divorce. Yeah. And then they're like, oh, I get it. Okay.
And not that you can't be married to someone with a processing disorder. It's learning how to communicate.
Marissa and I watched this little TikTok family about this guy who's on the spectrum, and they just had a baby. And oh man, we'll have to share that with you. But for our Patreon subscribers, thank you so much. You are making it possible for Addict to Athlete to move forward in our efforts to get this message out further, to do more with the content that we have. And I want to give a special shout out and thanks to our super fans, Jerem Thurston, Holly Davies, Scott Foster, Coach Tara Butson, Brett Frew, and Coach Chris Williams. Thank you, super fans. I can't not remember our sidekick here, the warrior within podcast and personal development with Sensei KP. Sensei KP is going to be helping me with a few things. I don't know if I've even told you about this yet, but he's going to help get me out of my head so much so that I can not just be training for some of the endeavors I've got planned, but also like understand why I'm the one that always wants to find the shortcut. So Sensei KP is going to coach Blu, and maybe we can throw some of this on the YouTube channel.
Help us.
Help him. Help me. Help me, Sensei. Help me help them. Our rookie levels, I want to thank Joe Jackson, Earl Dyer, Kenny Roseman, and Josh Hansen. Thank you so much, rookie subscribers. Appreciate you guys. Our pro level, Gary Thurston and Selena Armitage, who I just saw got some tickets to Garth Brooks, and we are sad now because we didn't get those, right?
Yeah.
So we'll have to just live vicariously through her. We'll have her live stream it, right?
That'll work. Maybe that'll be better.
Our championship level subscribers, I want to give a special shout out and thanks to Tracy Whitby, Ron and Dee Loesch, and the Shad and Freya Robinson family, the whole Robinson crew. We were able to run with the Robinsons this weekend, and
Emma came out.
Matt Crandall was able to push Emma. I saw them briefly at the beginning and never again.
Yeah, Matt's pretty fast.
Absolutely. Matt's pretty fast. And so is Emma. Have you noticed?
Yeah, she is.
Pretty fast. If you would like to help athletes' efforts in moving this new form of understanding how to cope with addiction, heal from it, and help family members achieve, I'm going to say, a home court advantage, jump onto patreon.com/addictathlete. Check out some of our tiers and what we've got going on, so you can pick a platform that works best for you to help out Team Addict Athletes' efforts. It's us giving you something back, which I truly love, right?
Yes, please. We, $2. Come on.
$2.
$2 a month.
Get you all the bonus content.
All the bonus stuff. And we when you get on too, you get to hear all the past bonus episodes that we had.
Absolutely.
So there's quite a few.
And this spectrum discussion we're going to be having is going to be worth it too, because it's going to help a lot of relationships. And so hopefully there's some value there. So check that out.
Yeah.
Online store, you see that Coach Blu's wearing his limited edition 10 years of champion. This is only going to be in the store for a small moment. And so if you want to jump on and celebrate 10 years of service, You can go to Addict Athletes Team Store. There's a tab there, just top corner. Get you to the team store and check out that and the other merchandise that we have available right now. Drop shipped to you directly, right?
Yes.
Awesome. Well, Marissa, we've got a lot to talk about today. We've got some questions that have come in. We've got some I remember whens, and I'm curious before we get rocking and rolling. Anything the team should be aware of as we celebrate 10 years of recovery, 10 years of sobriety, 10 years of service?
Yeah. So, well, we're going to get started for Utah County participating in a service or 5K a month again.
Yep.
Now that things are opening up. So Team Addict Athlete will be running the Run of Remembrance for May's 5K, which is on Memorial Day. And we have other things coming up, and we'll have one picked out for June here soon. And then July, we also have our big fireworks show.
Mm-hmm.
You can still donate to that if you'd like. And we would love for you to do that. We're going to have a big get together, and Rob Rich leads our awesome fireworks show.
Picture, if you will, a fireworks show that lasts a good 45 to 50 to almost 60 minutes. And we're not talking about little whistling Pete's and bottle rockets. We're talking the good stuff.
These are big.
Rob spends quite a bit of time putting this together. And I went out last time and I watched how he was setting it up. And he's got the particle board to make it level. He
spends days beforehand.
Yeah, the fast burning and slow burning wicks. Oh my gosh, man! Like
those are cool. Learning.
It's almost like he knows what he's doing.
Yeah,
we've been doing this a lot of years with him, haven't we?
And he did it years before we joined.
Yeah, absolutely. So really, Stadium of Fire, Stadium of Smire. Come over and hang out with Addict Athlete at the Art Dye Park in American Fork, and
July 3rd.
It's a good show, and the cool part about it too is it's a time for us just to kind of take a little bit of a respite and just be together. A lot of times in races and events, everyone's running around. This is the time where we get to mix and mingle a little bit, and it's all sober. It's all great stuff. So come jump into that. Has that been on the calendar now?
I think it is on our
People ask
calendar.
All the time, how do I know what's going on? The best way to do that, how is it?
It's our website. We
have
everything. We have our podcast links. We have a calendar. We have testimonials. We have information on our 5K. In fact, we should discuss that. We do not have registration open, but I'm hoping to get it open this week.
Yep.
But we are planning our annual 5K, which will be on Labor Day this year.
Yep.
For National Recovery Month, to celebrate and help and those who struggle with mental health and addiction. So we will have an in-person 5K this year. I believe we're going to shoot for Highland, Utah, but then we will have a virtual option. So anyone, anywhere can join us. This is a way to run in remembrance of somebody maybe that you have lost, or someone you love, or yourself, or someone else who's in recovery from mental health issues or substance abuse.
Yeah, we call it the proxy run because you run proxy for the person that you love. Individuals still struggling, or you yourself, if you've battled addiction and have kind of come on the other side with a platform of sobriety. I found it to be super emotional when you've got the name of the person you're running for on your bib, and you get to share that with the others that are running and people in general. And so the 2021 proxy run for Team Addict Athlete happening in September on Labor Day this year. We're locating a spot to do this. We're looking at doing it at the place where we did it 9 years ago.
Where our first 5K
which would be the Highland Glen Park in Alpine, Utah, or Highland, Utah.
But near Alpine.
Yeah, that's kind of right there.
Yeah.
Kind of as a tradition that 10 years later, we're still pushing forward some of the things that we're doing on Team Addict Athletes. Efforts to help you erase addiction and replace it with things of greater value. So that being said, jump on the website. We have everything there. Marissa's worked really hard in making it convenient and easy for you to use. So jump on there and see what's on there. All right. We want to start with Miss Selena first. She's raising her hand, or do you want to jump into these questions?
Oh, she's just raising her hand.
She's like, yes. Pick me, choose me.
I will move
I think she's going to rub in our noses that she got tickets.
I know.
We'll see.
Maybe she got us tickets and she's coming on to tell us.
Front row, right? Center stage.
Garth Brooks.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see. If that's not the case, we'll still like her,
we'll
right?
Kick her off.
Yeah. Awesome. You're on mute, Miss Selena. There you go.
Sorry, I got tickets. but only 2.
There you go. You know what? That's cool. You know what's funny is I used to despise country music. I used to despise it until I got a little older. I'm like, all right, these lyrics are kind of good. And I started with some of the mainstream guys, right? But man, secretly, I always had that crush on Garth. He's always been that one guy that I've liked. Everything he puts out, it's got good stuff behind it. So
Yes,
we're jealous, but we're glad you got to go there. Good luck fighting the crowds. That's all I can say.
Yeah, I think that he pulls in not just like the typical country fans, because his music is more, like it's not just stand there and play. I mean, when I saw him last time, he swung on a rope out into the audience.
You've seen him before? That's not fair, Selena.
I've seen him 3 times.
That's so cool. That's awesome. Have you seen the documentary on Netflix about him?
Yeah, and Good Things Utah, they interviewed him yesterday, and he said he's so excited to come to Utah because Utah fans are amazing. He said they kind of get overlooked as being country music fans, but when I love playing there because the crowd is just insane.
Cool. I love
so
it.
Anyway, but that's not
congrats.
It'll be fun. But I have a question real quick. Like
you should, yeah.
So I had a friend a couple weeks ago die of an overdose who I knew in Nephi for years, and he had been in prison related to the drug issues. And then he was released and a couple weeks and he was gone. My question is, if I knew any resources, I would have reached out to him. Like in the future, are they given resources to help them get back into society when they're released? Or is it just kind
from
of,
prison?
are they just thrown out there?
Yeah. Yeah. There are resources there. So I don't want to pretend like there's not.
There are.
But is it what they need? That's to be determined, right? This last Monday, we posted a podcast with Christy Long.
Yeah.
Christy Long and I worked pretty close together, and she worked for a program called PATR, and it would help people reintegrate into, the communities.
What did that stand for?
I don't know. Christy will tell us. It's like the prison something. Okay.
When you guys were saying that, I was like, no one else is. I think
it's prisoner, and the last one's reform. I think Padar. That's something. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, but it is. It's one of these kind of hidden gems, and I think that that's why Christy's mission and purpose is to serve that population, because it is underserved. I mean, there are a lot of unknown variables that they're going to face. Like I said, we watched a TikTok not too long ago of a guy who had released from prison, and his whole TikTok channel now is about reintegrating into normal society. And one of the things that stood out to me is they gave him this debit card with money on it. He didn't even know what it was. And so he goes to a store to buy something, and
they send him out walking. He doesn't get a ride somewhere, and so he just goes to the closest gas station, and he has his card, and he's like, what do I do with it? What is this?
Yeah.
But you bring up a good point. And maybe what we can talk Marissa into doing is to helping maybe put a little link to maybe some of these services and things onto our website, so that when people come out and we know of this, we can say, hey, check Addict to Athletes resource page. Because we have a big resource page, and it gets bigger as we get to do this kind of stuff. But like that, I would say it might be a good idea for starters.
I do know that usually they have, because we were going to present a couple years ago, they have like things for people in prison, like they have events, I don't know what it is, where you can go around and get resources right before you discharge.
Addict to Athlete has participated in several of those
where, so they have things like that, but sometimes it's still so overwhelming for the inmates. They don't even know, let alone they don't know what to ask or what does that mean. There's this Addict to Athlete thing, like, so depending, the guy on TikTok was in for 21 years. I mean, he went in when you had a dial-up phone and comes out with an iPhone. Like, that's just beyond comprehension, So the world moves really fast, and they're still trying to get caught up. And sometimes they just feel, so behind, they don't even dare, let alone know what questions to ask.
I'll be honest with you. I think Team Addict to Athlete can be a great starting point for a lot of these folks coming out, because it's more, as you know, it's more than just health and recreation. And so, as our resources page grows, and as we start talking, I'll talk to Christy. Christy knows a lot of resources. In fact, Christy
that
talked
would
to
be
me just
wonderful.
briefly about some services that they offer at the program she's at that I've been passing on to some people too. So it's a good point. But as a starting line, if you have a loved one that's kind of getting out and getting back into society, let's have them launch from the team. And first and foremost, and mental health therapist, right? Recreational therapist. Yeah. Marissa's done all kinds of drug and alcohol assessments, all kinds of things. She knows resources backwards and forwards. And we work pretty close just as a team and as professionals with probation officers as well. So setting up your team to get out is a good idea. I like where your head's at.
Well, yeah, and that's a great advice for all those things I wish I would have done.
Yeah. Well, I'll be honest with you. People don't realize the resources they have on Team Addict to Athlete with myself and Marissa being professionals. I mean, we're not just life coaches. We are licensed therapists and rec therapists. Yeah. And so we know where to point you if you need help.
Yeah. And sometimes coming out of incarceration, they just need some hand holding. So even if it's like people give them a bunch of brochures, you kind of have to do it a little bit with them too.
Yeah.
So, and I post all the time, we've got these podcasts and some people are like, what is a podcast? How do I listen to
There's still
podcast?
people out there that don't know what it is. Yeah.
So, we need to.
In hindsight, I wish I would have snatched him up and brought him to a meeting or something, but he was in there 5 years and
so much changes.
It does.
He didn't even last 2 weeks and it just broke my heart.
Oh, yeah. So, dang, that is heavy. Well, let's
anyway, thank you
let's help those who are coming down next time. Oh, absolutely.
Great question. Thank you.
But it brings up a good point to make sure that you guys are staying tuned to the website, because there'll be resources there. And what's interesting too, Marissa, is that I've been asked this too. We need to be very clear on the fact that Addict to Athlete, we are not affiliated with any treatment center program out there. Nope. In fact, a lot of them, people call it and ask us for recommendations. A lot of it is not telling you where to go for treatment. It's telling you what to ask when you're doing your research. Yeah. Because we are not in the pocket of any treatment center or program. We're just not.
We have a couple good podcasts on that. We have the one with Ryan Ward, Problems with Rehab, is fantastic. And the one with Shelly. She is a billing specialist therapist and works with insurance companies. And I think that one's called What Do You Need to Know Before Going to Rehab? It's really good and gives you some good stepping stones for that. So if you're looking for somebody, what questions to ask. And like Blue said, I do substance abuse assessments. So if you need an assessment for court, or you're just worried and struggling and you'd like to know what you need, I can do an assessment and give you some recommendations on what kind of level of care you need. I believe you should find an independent person, even if it's not me that does an assessment. If you go to a facility and get your assessment done there, they're going to tell you, their recommendation will be that you stay there. If you go to treatment there, you give them your money there.
And so most people do, right? Because it's like, okay, well, now I know a face here. I know what I'm looking for.
But it's going to be a very biased assessment because they want your money. Mm-hmm. I just do assessments and send you on your way. I tell you what to look for, and and I know everyone else. I know many people, they'll do an assessment and you all of a sudden need 90 days in residential when maybe you don't.
Exactly.
So be careful with that. We
don't really tell you go to the this treatment center, that treatment center. We don't do that. What we do is say these are what this is what you would qualify for. This is what you ask when you're making your decisions. And
I may give you some recommendations around here, maybe something that goes with your insurance if I know it. But also treatment centers around here seem to go through staff like nothing.
Pretty quick.
And so it really does depend on, I believe, some of the direct care staff and therapists on if a facility is really good or not. And those guys seem to roll through. So
and
that means
you've got to be, this day and age, you got to be picky because you're investing a lot of money and time. Let's be honest, and time. And so, seeing that side of that world, I know why there's sometimes desperation in trying to get people in, but all in the same breath, you're going into a program where your life is going to change. And so do your research. We'll help you understand and know what to ask and what to look for. And like Marissa said, those 2 podcasts with Ryan Ward and with Shelley, those are great resources, just as starting points. But really, you could get clean talking to a polar bear,
a tree,
if you're willing
if you want it
to do the work. Yeah. So, be mindful of that. But yeah, great question. Get on our resource pages and we'll get you guys lined up. Marissa, first question.
Yeah.
It's kind of an interesting one too, because you and I have talked a little bit about this in the past, and I think it's something that we want to really, I guess, maybe address head on, but really to kind of bring some more awareness. And it's from someone that that does not want to be, I guess, identified, right?
Anonymous.
Yeah. And it goes as this. Hey, Coach and Marissa, thanks so much for 10 years of dedicated service. We appreciate every opportunity we've ever had to spend time with Addict to Athlete. Coach, I'm still stuck in a mindset of needing to go completely abstinence, not using anything, not even medication, because I'm so afraid that there's the potential for abuses out there. Even simple things such as ibuprofen, Tylenol, heck, even vitamins gets me in a mindset that if I'm relying on something, am I really clean? My brain is telling me no, but everyone else around me is telling me yes. And so where do I start to convince myself that I need the help that I need, and I know where I could go to get it? It's a big one, Marissa. I mean, you talk about like there's still this stigma about, again,
there are many people that push a stigma that is continuing to be a deterrent, to be an obstacle, and even killing some people by making them think that there's only one way that is right and one way that is correct. And that's extremely frustrating to me.
Yeah. Let's get into some of those supplements though, because you mentioned those specifically. Supplements in activity, in health recreation, grain of salt stuff here. There are some that I know are phenomenal. There are others that are the worst things known to man. It's interesting when I see people trying to, and I saw a couple of guys shaking up some bottles up before we started running down the canyon on Saturday, and the hum of the pre-workout. Some stimulant to kind of get the blood going, get your muscles kind of where they need to be. The funny thing about that is they work, but they're not long lasting. And so it's interesting when you start doing that.
Really worth the cost?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the hard part about that is you could be dropping quite a bit of money on something that might kickstart you, but then it's like, when you boil it down to its core, it's like caffeine and some guarana and things that are kind of like stimulant based. Yeah. There's some good stuff out there. I'm not an expert on this. I know we've had Brian on here.
Brian Schellenberger. We have a nutrition one on there. I know he says that as for like supplements, the ones that have the strongest like research based is a multivitamin, fish oil, and creatine. Yeah. Those are the only 3. Like the others are usually kind of just fluff, or obviously go along with what your doctor says, but it's not. Yeah. And I was like shocked. And he does research. If you guys have listened to his podcast, like he knows what he's talking about. Yeah, Brian knows what he's talking about, and weight ticks. Yeah. Look it up. He has some podcasts on that may be really helpful and beneficial. But, if we're also just looking for something to make us feel good, you need to have self-awareness. Are you looking for something to make you feel good, to run real fast, to lose weight real fast, and just always hoping a pill or a drink or a shake is going to make that happen? It's not. It's not. Whether it's not going to happen for weight loss or for athletic ability. For life, for, even if it's, okay, I'm struggling with depression or I'm struggling with anxiety or some mental health stuff. Yes, many people do need medication. That's needed, but it's not going to fix it. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of things that we have to do, and that's the long, hard work. That's the, getting up and exercising. It's eating well balanced. It's having a balanced life, keeping your spirituality, your social, your education, all of those areas of your life well balanced. Yeah. And that's the hard work that people are like, oh no, just just give me a pill, I'll feel better.
It's kind of like this too. Like I noticed during this last run that I think COVID kind of wrecked me a little bit more than I thought. I can't blame everything on COVID. My lack of running definitely played into a lot of that, but I could tell that when I was breathing, I was having a little bit of a rough time trying to get those full breaths, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's new. And so the little bit of research I did on COVID and lungs and whatnot also said that, things that can exacerbate that too is like high consumptions of carbonation.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, all right, so I'm going to eliminate more carbonation. I'm going to start doing some things like
and cut your lung capacity.
The sugar-free lemonade, which I'm probably addicted to now, water, because I'm like, all right, I used to use a lot of caffeine even before we started running. Grab a Red Bull, grab something to kind of get you boosted. But then you get thinking, all right, in the long term, that's not going to help, right?
Yeah.
And so there's things you can do to start getting some of that stuff back. But like sugars and things, simple sugars. Before I started, I had an apple. Felt great food-wise. Yeah, that's the first time I didn't have to stop and eat like the crazy trying to get it. And I didn't even eat that much afterwards. And it was because I think that I didn't do the pink lady apples. So it's kind of a funny thing how we think that some of this chemical stuff is going to help us achieve those maximizing performances, but it's not. It really is the simple things that have been around since the caveman era, minus the sugar-free lemonade here. They're going to help you. And so, we can find some sports nutritionists too to try and talk about that too, but be cautious with some of that stuff. The other things,
if you need it, you need it.
Yeah.
Like right here, if we're talking about, mental health and some kind of, talk to your doctor, talk to a professional that you trust. If you have a doctor that you feel like he's just in and out, find a new doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you need some counseling and therapy along with it. There's a lot to it. It's not just like taking a pill or, doing some drugs and taking a drink to make you feel better. But
absolutely.
If you can do it in moderation, go for it. I don't.
Okay. Coach Blu, congrats on 10 years, you guys. 10 years of champion. I love that message. Coach, I have a question for you and hopefully Marissa. I have 3 kids, all under the age of 15 at home. My husband comes home from a hard days of work, and I know that he does a lot for my family, but I always feel as though my anxiety is getting the best of me to the point by which I don't want to parent anymore. I've been sober now for 13 years, but have felt more so than ever me slipping back into relapse mode. What can I do to not lose my extrative on my children and to keep myself above that desire to want to relapse? Marissa, when we start getting overwhelmed, we start feeling like there is not enough time for me or for us, where do we start? Because being a mom is not easy. It's hard. And when you have things that occupy time, desire starts getting kind of takes a hit. Where do we start?
Well, I think it's starting with what is the real problem. Like when he says, anxiety, and then all of a sudden lists a bunch of other things, some of them not really related to anxiety. Good point. Is it anxiety, and what is that anxiety being triggered from is a place to start. And you've got to be able to, are you anxious about getting engaged with the kids and not knowing how? Is it feeling overwhelmed because of work and parenting and finances and, bills and taking care of the house and the yard? And what is it? It's going to help a lot more than just trying to trigger shoot for whatever.
Do you know what's interesting to me? And I don't know if this is your anxiety, but this is kind of some of mine, specifically with working out and whatnot, is I've got to be better at time management when it comes to this kind of stuff, because in my head right now, I'm going to go out for a run. I know I am. I've decided it's going to happen. It hasn't happened yet because of other factors, right?
Yeah.
So here's my thing now is now I've got this time, this clicking clock going on, and I have something, we have a podcast we'll be recording at 2:30. I've got an individual session tonight. But I'm like, how do I space that in between? Because what if I'm going out and I'm running and I just really enjoy it? I want to go further. Or what if, something else pops up? I mean, I have all these kind of competing things, and it's because I'm not making it priority.
And
you
then
know?
when you don't get something done, then you start feeling bad that you
Yeah.
didn't do what you had planned. But yeah, like time management is huge.
Yeah.
And that's for sure going to increase anxiety if you're not managing that time well.
Mhm.
And then you start feeling bad because you drop this ball and you drop that ball. And so it's
Because it's like this. It's like this, right? After this is over, I could go run and be back with plenty of time. But I also want to post this video that we did, and I want to make sure I have enough research on the guest. And so I'm thinking, all right, maybe I just want to do it after. But then after I get thinking, okay, now I have an individual session. And so it's kind of a funny thing where it's like, all right, so when is the perfect time, right?
Yeah.
Is there such thing? Not really. How do you make it a priority? And that's kind of it too, is if having a scheduled workout time, your time only to meditate or what have you, if that starts taking a back seat to everything else, then everything else isn't going to get the full you. Does it make sense, right? You're going to have these resentments, you're going to have these issues. And so I'd say for me that I would tell you is to prioritize your time. It's important. It's the same concept of the airplane. The mask falls down, put yours on before you help someone else. Great in theory, but in practicality, most of us don't do that.
Well, and it's also like taking those biggest things, it's, I guess maybe I'm the only one that's done it, but you have a bunch of rocks, big ones, little ones, small ones, sand, and a mason jar. And somebody says, get everything as much as you can inside here. Okay. If you start with the sand and then the little rocks and then the big rocks, you're not going to have enough room.
Yeah.
What's the best, most efficient way to get everything into that jar? You start with the biggest things first.
Yeah.
What is number one? Start making that list and do those things first. Then the middle, medium-sized rocks, then the small-sized rocks, then the sand can kind of just go in and like find its way to make it fit. And you are going to be much more efficient. You're going to be able to utilize that space, utilize your own time way better.
I love that analogy. I like it a lot. The problem is that I get is, well, what do I determine is a big rock versus a grain of sand, right?
You've got to decide.
Yeah, that's the hardest part, right? Because it's easy to move the big stuff. It gets super monotonous and boring when you have to pick up the little teeny things.
Yeah.
And so, labeling what's high priority, I'll let you in on a little secret on the Robinson family. For some strange reason, high on our priority is not like family dinners. Like, it's kind of funny. We all converse, we all hang out, but very seldom do we ever just make, I mean, when's the last time we made dinner 7 days in a row?
When Opa was here.
When Opa was here.
Like
Gary, get you back up here. Yeah.
Take care of my dad.
And even then, our kids were like, whoa, what's going on? What's this, right?
Well, because we have some very picky eaters in this house.
We do.
Like,
we also spend our time doing a lot of other things too. And so I know a lot of people say, like the family dinner, that's the one standard. Not so much in the Robinson home. We do our things a lot different, but it got me thinking about that too, about like, that's a pretty big rock, but we start looking at what's also important, which is, family doing their things, following up with what they have to do. Here nor there, but it's going to be hard for you to choose what is most important, but then gear into what's most important, right down to that grain of sand. And so if family dinner is a grain of sand, don't make it a big one. Right. Yeah. Or if, winding down with a story at the end of the night is a big rock, don't put that off. Or if running, getting yourself out and working out, if it's turning into a relapse, which is going to be, moving everything off the table, label your big rocks for what they really are. I like that analogy. I think it's
those
good.
Done. Get them. You have to. You're going to mess yourself up and mess up the whole thing if you don't. And it's learning how you work, like I always tell the kids, we have daily chores that the kids do. And I always say a little bit every day, and there's more time to play. And I know they're going to hate that when they get older, but I bet they'll say it to their kids, because then they'll go all week not doing their little chores. And then Saturday we have a long day of chores and they get super frustrated. And I just try to remind them, if we did a little every day, there's more time to play rather than doing all chores on Saturday.
I love that. So then as a mother, as the matriarch of a family, how often do you put your needs or wants on the back burner?
Infinity.
Yeah.
I mean,
So then
all
how
the
do
time.
how do you balance that? How do we get into it? I mean, I know for guys, what do we need to do to be able to help? I remember years ago making the mistake of saying, "Hey, it looks like the house is a wreck here." Remember back in the olden days? And then it hit me as we talked about it, and things that were cool is like when I'd come home and the house was messy, I knew that you guys had an amazing day and that you were being with the kids, and that, you know,
Yeah.
you having a clean house didn't mean, or a dirty house didn't mean that you were just sitting there watching soap operas. It was, you're busy. And that was the job that we chose, to be parents. And so
Well, it's looking, yeah,
we roll up
it's
our sleeves and
taking
we get
that
it done.
perspective change made it a huge difference, you know. Even just the other day, you went in the backyard and you were all frustrated. There was so much stuff everywhere. And I was like, the boys played outside. They weren't in their rooms on their devices for hours on end. So yeah, they didn't clean it up. And I was, you know, we talked about that. But oh my gosh, they played, and we've been trying for so long to get them outside, and the weather's great, and they played, and it was
Well,
awesome.
and when did I become that guy? That's the thing that bothered me.
know.
When did I become the guy that's like, there's a pool noodle on the lawn, right? I mean, when did I become that guy? And so I'm glad that you stopped and said, hey, well, let's look at it for what it is, not for what you're seeing it as, because that was kind of funny, actually. It worked out
Yeah.
that way.
Well, because, you know, cleanliness is important to me, at least. And so it's like we can have fun, but if it gets too crazy, then I feel like I can't feel good inside of a messy place. And
Yeah.
so, you know,
That's
just
actually,
decide what is most important, but you have to be aware of that yourself.
absolutely. Let's see. Let's do this one. This is a good one. Because
we have somebody.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Ro.
Bring
We're
it
gonna
on.
Bring Ro over.
That's awesome. Yeah, a mother's job is never done.
Yeah.
Then you're picking up all the sand that everybody else dropped to put in their bottle, right?
You can have this conversation with Ro.
Yeah. Yeah. It wasn't Ro who asked that question, though, just so you know.
Yeah. I know
she could have been, though.
She puts herself last.
Ro, how are you doing this fine day?
I'm good. I'm at work.
Awesome.
Good to see you.
Welcome aboard.
How are you guys doing?
Good.
What you got today?
Hey, I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Just I wouldn't be me if I didn't have a mountain in my way.
You are a mountain climber, yes.
So weird question. I guess, yeah, anyways. So the last week and a half, we've dealt with some loss in the family, not so much like blood related family, but Shay lost one of his friends to an overdose.
Mm.
And that was really, really hard, not just for me, but Shay. And this time last year, he lost his other friend.
Yes.
One that passed away at Bartholomew Pond, and his grandpa, all within the same week.
Oh, man.
And his PTSD kicked back in, but also my brother relapsed, the one that got out of prison, who's super like institutionalized. And the weird thing is, like, trying to create that balance between understanding how to help my own immediate family, but also being there for this kid, you know, who's been there for the last 6.5 years with us. And is just, I mean, he's between our house and another friend's house. And he was an amazing kid. He was awesome. But honestly, I think that one hit me harder, like way harder than my own brother did, which, I mean, I don't know if it's selfish to say or not.
It's not,
but also, like I said, just trying to cope and be there for my own family.
Yeah.
That I don't know if it's weird to say, but even when my own younger brother OD'd, thank goodness we didn't lose him. But with this kid, he was like a mirror image of me. I mean, he's not my son, but I mean, after that happened, I lost it. And then after, I was like, okay, I'm okay. I kept saying prayer, went running, everything was great. So I thought. And it seemed like just since then, everything's just been on autopilot. And it just kind of got, I don't even know if got in the way is the right thing to say, but me starting school and trying to prioritize time management and do everything is more on the back burner. And this just keeps surfacing back up.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
How old was he?
How to deal with that.
What? How old was he?
He just turned 20.
Geez, that's so young. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Well, let's look at it for what it really is too. Because of poor Shay, my heart breaks for him because when he lost his buddy last year, I mean, he was
Two friends like that.
Just up the street from us, unfortunately, like you'd said. And that was to an accident. I mean, obviously, so it was an overdose to a degree, but it seems like one would be a little bit more easy to avoid, but not really. Accidents are accidents, and first and foremost, it's what are you labeling it as? Because as you're seeing all this stuff, it would be very hard for you not to put Shay in any of those positions, like the fragility of life in and of itself. And here's this kid who has the cusp of the world right at his doorstep, and then that happens. So I can understand why there's probably a little bit of a different stock being put into this one because of how real it is. Does that make sense? Like, I can totally understand maybe even you to a certain degree placing Shay in those situations of like how much you love him and how much you worry about him. And so to a certain degree, Ro, I think maybe also this is hitting you a little bit heavier because the times are changing and the reality of the fragility of life is getting more and more present. And, you're thinking, how can he keep going through this kind of stuff? How does Shay view this? I mean, has he been able to express himself on what he sees, thinks, and feels about all of this? There's a lot of relationships that have been lost.
It's a lot for him in a year.
Honestly, no. And that's where I feel bad because I mean, I know you've even said it before, and not just you, but a couple of people, that Shay is just like me. He tries, and I didn't realize it until just a couple of days after this happened, that he holds his sadness and he holds his hurt so well that I don't know if he's hurting sometimes. I mean, I can see it, but at the same time,
he just powers through. He knows
he does. And
he knows there's other things he needs to do and take care of. And
and that's the thing, is that I feel bad that I don't know if he's just inherited that for me. He learned that from me, from trying to just do everything all the time and just be okay, that I know I wasn't okay, and I don't want him to go through that, but I don't know how. Well,
I think you do. I think you because let's just take it down that pathway. If he's a lot like you, and I know that he is, right? You know how to get through that kind of stuff. And so it's like you have the answers inside, but it's like, now how do I express this to a third person? Because in that inner dialogue, what needs to happen. And I think you do it to a certain extent. But in our head, when we're used to coping and solving things on our own, we're not used to helping other people do it. And so you have the ability, the language, the techniques already inside because you use them. So if Shay is a lot like you, all your responsibility would be is to help him tap into that kind of stuff. So here's, so like, okay, Blue, that's a great metabolical like mindset. But what do you mean by that? Yeah. So here's what I would say is how you cope, and you bottle it up until you let it go. And I think that's the same thing with him, is now starting to help him dive into that by asking questions that you have specifically, like, but don't do it in a way where you're drilling him with 20 questions, but just saying, hey, Shay, this is what I think. And by you starting to express what you're thinking, if he's a lot like you, he's going to be like, yeah, I totally get that. I totally understand that. So really it's about you sharing your thoughts out loud. It's about saying, Shay, have you ever noticed how, like, you and I have a hard time like sharing some of that pain? Do you ever find yourself bottling it up and powering through? He's like, well, yeah, me too. Why do you think we do that? And it's you now starting to let, the magician know his tricks. It's about you now verbalizing some of the stuff so you guys can process this stuff together. Because as you're coming to terms with this stuff that he'll start coming to the stuff with he knows. And then together you guys can be like, oh my gosh, that makes a lot of sense or whatnot. It's kind of a funny thing, but it's like you speaking out loud what you're thinking instead of keeping it inside. It'll wake something up in him too. That'll be like, yeah, Mom, I do that too.
I think it's also doing some of the things, the coping skills, work for you around and with him. Whether it is crying or talking or
axe throwing.
I don't know if he runs too, but I know he works on cars and I know that he loves that. And you've done that too. Like, is it going out and like working on a car and then maybe
hitting a car show or something too?
Conversation go so he can talk while he's doing something that is really good for him that he loves,
it's about tapping into that source of him too.
to
That's
make sure that he's having some release, even if it's not the exact same way as you, but he's utilizing those positive coping skills that he does too, to let some of it go.
The good thing you have going for you, Rose, that I think Shay's probably has a hard time with too is, and don't let him listen to this, but because he's been raised by a single mother, and to that degree, he has a very strong feminine side to some of his emotions. What I mean by that is, you've always tried to have more of a masculine approach, which is like, grin and bear it and just power through it. But you can't, and you've been getting soft and ooey and gooey inside here the last couple of years, because I've watched it, and that's kind of what he needs to see too. Is that although I believe that men need to have more masculinity when it comes to emotions, I also know that there's a very powerful thing inside them when they can identify and bring those out. So he's kind of caught in between the masculinity and the feminine, I guess traits of dealing with emotions. When you have a good balance of both of those, I think that's where the gold lies. And so I would say do what Marissa's talking about too, but think out loud. Shay, I've been thinking about this, and don't even ask for his opinion. Just like verbalize what you're thinking, and then lay that platform down so he can do the same. And then when it comes, like, what are your thoughts on that? Or, why do you think this? Or have you ever noticed that? And really kind of teach him vicariously to help getting, I guess a more stable foundation to share his emotions.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Powerful stuff. Yeah. And as always, if we can be of assistance, man, anytime. Yeah. I love that kid. I love all your little guys.
I definitely
don't have little guys anymore. They're all growing up.
Yeah,
have you noticed?
Big guys.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I definitely think we'll probably take you up on that. Today we're actually having not so much a one-on-one. So because it was him and another friend that found his buddy. So he overdosed on Saturday, got released from the hospital, was able to go home, and he had a really, really bad trigger, and he ended up overdosing on other things about 9 hours later.
Oh, it's heartbreaking.
And Shay's clean, everything. He's not using, neither was his other buddy. They tried having like an intervention with him. So today it's gonna be me, Shay, one of his buddies' mom, and about 6 of the boys. But that's what I'm afraid of, is I don't know how to approach that. But me and Shay did talk about your services yesterday. So I think
good.
I think so.
I'm here and willing and able whenever he feels like it's time.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much, guys.
You're welcome.
Thank you. You guys are in our prayers.
See, some of the practical stuff with this, I think, gets lost in the situations of what do we do next. And I my heart breaks for a lot of families that have that.
It just feels so overwhelming, like, what do you do? And in something so intense and so emotional, it's like you don't want to do the wrong thing. So sometimes I think we freeze up too, like just not knowing what to do, let alone just the emotions are so intense. And whether it's crying and then being fine and then crying again, you're like, is this right too? Like, this doesn't feel good. It can't be right. Well, sometimes you just need to cry and it's going to hurt.
Well, without getting into too much detail, because, there's no need for it. You and I were just having a conversation about this too, where we were speaking with an individual who didn't know how to share feelings. And so they defaulted to one thing, which was not healthy.
Yeah.
And I love what you said. When they came back and said, well, I just didn't know how to deal with my feelings. And I love what you said. It was so powerful. Do you remember what you said?
Yeah. I said, what you chose to do was punishing yourself for feeling. So whether it's using, whether it's, lying or manipulating, or if it's self-harming, overeating, that's you punishing yourself for having feelings. You can't do that.
I've never looked at it that way. And it's like, how hard must it be when we have people out there that punish themselves for simply feeling? Yeah. That's what addiction is. That's what all that stuff is. That's a very simplistic way to look at that magnitude of an issue, when we just feel so low that we're like, I don't even deserve to feel sorrow. I don't deserve to feel anger. I just, I hurt myself. Man, that's a That's a powerful one. And so it's important, listeners, that we get in connection with these. And I'm a firm believer that, like I said, I think that men are having a little bit of a crisis right now when we don't know how to express emotions to a point where we have these feelings. And so either we bottle them up, or we become, way too emotionally invested in our own stuff.
We have another caller.
Yeah.
Chelsea.
It's a big one.
Yeah.
Because I'm still, we're going to do a whole deep dive on the guys, I think on Agents of Recovery. So,
all right, this is our last call.
Yeah. What a great one to finish off with.
If we can get her unmuted.
Maybe.
Chelsea, do you have a question?
There she is.
I do. What is happening? So my daughter is 15.
Mm-hmm.
I think you guys have met her a couple of times, but
Yeah.
I got a Marco Polo from her today, and she is just really struggling with just the stresses of being a teenager. But
yeah, we know a few of those. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. And I've tried to tell her, you need to stop using the word can't, but she feels like her dad is just, the expectations are just unrealistic. You have to get straight A's and all this stuff. But how do I, she's just so much like me, and that's what's scary to me in ways, if she doesn't channel it the right way. And I don't know how to like what to say to her. I didn't raise her, but yeah, she's just like me, and I don't know how to approach the situation. Her dad won't really let me co-parent yet. So
yeah. So you're like, so she's coming into you kind of not as a, I need you to fix this, more as a person she can trust to listen. But on the same breath, he may not let you parent, but guess what? You're still her mom. So Marissa, what do you think? Where do we start with this?
So I think a lot of it's going to be being that listening ear, like for her to be able to feel like she can, when you don't live with her, you don't, to even feel like reaching out to you is huge, so I believe just always thanking her for that, and, listen. And like you say, like helping her rethink, I don't think that's a bad thing. Like some of those things I know I say over and over and over. I hope that at some point they'll hear me in their head, like you say, that we
had that conversation today with one of ours. Yeah, that same thing.
That you don't say I can't. I can do it. And what can I do? How do I do it?
Yeah.
And that's, I'm guessing if she's a lot like you, she's kind of a perfectionist too. So some of it may not just be her dad's expectations, but her own.
Yes.
Even though they're unrealistic. And like asking her, what is the realistic thing that you can do in this situation? Not the perfect thing, because we're not perfect, and we're not meant to be perfect.
Yeah. And it's funny because that's literally what I said to her so far was, I understand that your dad has set these expectations, but for a second, let's jump down to what can you do today? Like what expectation can you set for yourself, and just start there.
Absolutely. And I think you can't be afraid of stepping on toes, obviously, because, it would be like, you're not giving parent advice, but you are. Does that make sense? You're giving human advice, parent or not. So she's coming to you for that. And so I love the fact that you, Marissa, had mentioned that too. Like the I can'ts and stuff, those are so easy. And you know what they really mean. It's the I'm overwhelmed and, I'm scared, or all those things. And so when you move away from that, you start opening up the doors to what's really going on, right? Maybe she is. Did you see that happen?
Yeah. I told her, I said, you're telling me this is what I'm hearing. I said, I'm hearing that you're stressed about getting a job and getting your license and good grades. I said, but honey, these are things that a 15-year-old usually is doing right now. Yeah. So there's got to be more going on that's causing you to be this stressed out.
Oh yeah. So. Yeah. I mean, we have a 15-year-old, and it's the same. It's same things in that. I mean, now she's got 2 jobs. she wants to take, it was funny, she wanted to take driver's ed this summer
with 2 jobs.
with 2 jobs.
Boy.
And Marissa's like,
No.
would you slow down and look at the big picture? She's like, but I can do it. I'm like, well, I know you can, but do you want to? Because let's look at this, you know?
Your birthday is not till November. We can do it in the fall when it's slower.
Yeah.
Like,
And it sucks though, because she's got in her mind that that's what she wants. And so she's already created the pathway of how to do it. But the thing is she doesn't realize that the practicality of all that's insanity.
or that all her friends are doing it, so she has to as well.
Which
And
was really, I think, the base of the issue, right?
Yeah.
We're telling her to like slow down, but she's like, but then I'm going to miss having a social network there to help support me through this.
Yeah.
So we got to the point, but it's the same thing. You're absolutely right. And so, Chels, I don't know why you're calling us for advice when you have it yourself. I
You're
think maybe it's just
saying
that
it.
confirmation of like, was this right?
was
good.
Yeah, absolutely it was.
It was really good.
I think that's genius, because what typically happens in your situation is, well, I'll come rescue you and I'll fight your dad for you. And I love that wasn't even on the table. It was like, no, I'm not even going there. This is me and you here. And so
Yeah. I
she's going
learned
to trust that.
Yeah.
She's going to trust that more than anything, because then she's realizing that you're not going to rescue her from anything, but the troops aren't coming, but you're going to help her become the troops, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Spot on, Chelsea.
Good job.
Absolutely. And it's heartbreaking. These little 15-year-olds, they're different than when we were 15-year-olds. Do you remember? I mean, they are, I can't believe all the stuff they're having to deal with. You
I
know,
know.
they're going to make
Yeah.
mistakes. They're going to have successes. All they need us to be really is just kind of a little bit of a boundary and a little bit of a warning track. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
Later.
Yeah, it
Mhm.
does. And me, I'm over here just every day, all the time, just don't do that, or this is gonna happen. Don't make that choice, or this is gonna happen. Please don't.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
have to stop.
I had that conversation with our 15-year-old too, about like, hey, look, I'm not going to dictate who you can see and who you can't see. I'm not going to, pretend like I have that kind of power. It's just like, I learned that working with you guys in drug court. I just realized real soon that me trying to put like these arbitrary like consequences for
Mhm.
like, you can't fraternize or hang out with or whatever.
Trying to help you.
All it
be
did was
better.
make everybody more sneaky. And so it's the same thing I told, our daughter was like, look, we're just telling you to be cautious with everything that you do, everything you surround yourself with. Just have your head on a swivel with life, But when it comes to, what you're doing, what your career path is, how you're doing in school, all these things, it's 100% up to you. It's not up to us, which is kind of weird to say, because I was never told that. It was do this or else consequences.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and that's what I've been doing with Colton, is trying to explain to him, like, this is what you actually have control over,
mhm.
and this is what we have control over, and showing him that if you look at it that way, the list is a lot longer on his side, and he's like, oh wow.
Yeah. Well, you get to see it firsthand just with your environment. I mean, even where you live, you get to see instant consequences for people who don't want to change. And it's like, you do realize you're creating all this yourself, and either you live next door to me, or you have this kind of job, or you have this kind of career.
Yeah.
You can throw all that away if you want to do something else. Right. And
Yep.
so I love the fact that you're seeing it in real time as well, that you're like, I can't control any of this stuff, but I can shoot a couple warning shots across your bow and let you know that I see you getting close to those out of bound moments.
Yeah, for sure.
Good on you, Chelsea.
I wish I could control everything, but
I know.
Yeah.
Don't know.
Man, what a pain in the butt that would be. Whew. Man,
yeah.
I wouldn't want that kind of power. No, thank you.
that's
Uh,
All right.
Okay,
Thanks for
thank
calling.
you.
Awesome, Chelsea. You're doing great.
thanks.
So, athletes, viewers, all those who have participated today, thank you so much. We got lots of other questions that we'll get to. Continue to submit those. If we don't answer them online, I typically can respond to you within the next day or so. So we get your answer, given. Thank you, Radio Ronin, and the Radio Ronin Network, for all that you do for Team Addict Athlete, helping us get this podcast out to those who need it. And please share, subscribe, and leave us a review. If all else fails, and you want something to do to help Addict Athlete, review the podcast, review this podcast, share it with people that you love. It helps us increase our foothold in the recovery community, online and on the podcasting network. So super easy. It's a couple steps, but it's not difficult. So again, happy anniversary, Team Addict Athlete, 10 years strong. We'll be doing a lot of cool things this year because of that. And until next time, go turn that mess into a message.